Holy City Center Radio is episode 364, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. What's up, everyone? I hope you are having an awesome week so far. Welcome back to the show. Excited to be back with you. We've got lots to talk about. Quickly, though, excited to say that my parents are currently in town. They brought along their dog Piper, who is the best, just this cute little rambunctious dog, but she's very good, of course, very good dog, very well behaved, and it's fun having them here. Their dog and my cat are getting along as good as they can. Only a couple hisses from my cat when the dog gets a little too close. She's definitely scared of my cat, so they're keeping a little bit of a distance. But it's nice to be able to have them be able to walk around freely. In the past, I'd have to kind of feed my cat in my room because they had another dog who was like 12 years older than the pup when they got the puppy. And that dog used to kind of chase after the cat before she got a little too old. And so we would have to kind of separate them. And so this is a lot easier. And it's nice to, have everybody able to freely walk around and have fun. So it's been good. We haven't done anything exciting yet. You may remember I just saw them in New Orleans. And they just got into town, so they're unpacking and relaxing, and we have been doing some stuff around the house as well. Have my dad help me out with some things that need fixing, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I'll let you know if we end up doing anything. I'm sure we'll go out to eat and do some other things. But happy to have them here and enjoying spending time with them. But without any further delay, we have lots to talk about, so let's get into the latest news. All right, first up, South Carolina senators voted 33-8 on Monday night to approve a resolution to remove the state treasurer from office. This happened after a long meeting. 8 hours is how long this entire debate and discussion went on. Now, the resolution needed 31 votes to pass, and it got 33, as I mentioned. And so that means that the South Carolina State Senate wants to oust Curtis Loftus from that position of state treasurer, but he's not out of a job yet. The South Carolina House would also have to take up this resolution, and they would need 2/3 of that body to approve the resolution for Loftus to be removed. You may remember this vote is happening because of a $1.8 billion accounting error that was discovered last year, and it was determined that this money didn't really exist. The state was bouncing around between, an old system, a new system, and they were setting up like a temporary account to help move funds around. And in any event, that's how this all came to be. And that money didn't really exist. You can look back at the old stories or the old podcasts about it for more details about the specifics of it. But that is what brought us to where we are. For his part, Loftus said that the Senate investigation is a witch hunt. He repeatedly said that no money went missing and that the errors were not even made by his office, although others testified differently. The treasurer also said that continuing to focus on the mistakes that were made in the past threatens the state's strong credit rating. So that was his defense. I'm sure it'll be the same when it comes to the House discussions on this resolution. So for now, Loftus very much still the state treasurer, but one step closer to being ousted after that $1 billion accounting error. Well, she's back in the news. I'm sure you've already seen it. National Nancy Catch Me Outside Mace had two interactions with, one was seemed to be a constituent. The other person, not sure if they are a constituent or not, but nonetheless a member of the public. And the reason that we know about these is because Nancy Mace in her campaign, or her office rather, posted these on her, actual, whether it was her personal social media accounts or her office, because she has her own account, but then she has one for being the representative. These clips were shared, and, she then followed up the clips with comments. And so she put these out there herself. She apparently thinks these videos make her look good, or at least make the other people look worse. You could be the judge of that. The video clips are out there. There's also links in the show notes where you can go watch. I'm going to certainly give my opinion on these and give you a little bit of background. So we'll talk about the first incident. This is the one that got the most play on the news, whether locally or nationally, because it happened a few days ago. We'll see if this other incident that happened last night will also get that same kind of coverage. But first, as I mentioned, Nancy Mace, Representative District 1, she recorded a confrontation with a voter over, when she was going to hold her next town hall. We've talked about the town hall issue before. Well, that simple question then led to both of them, arguing, and expletives were flying, insults as well. And this was all happening at Ulta, a beauty product, makeup and whatever else type of store. All was happening in an aisle there. So this came to light because Mace posted the video on her social media saying, quote, "Some unhinged lunatic wearing Daisy Dukes at a makeup store got in my face today. Dems are nuts. So I went off and I won't be backing down," end quote. So a couple things. She's going after the man's attire. He was wearing shorts that were, a little high, not Daisy Dukes, but you get where she's trying to go there. And also not the point. Assumed he is, a Democrat, and maybe he votes Democrat. I don't know. But, just made that assumption. But she does that a lot on social media. Anyone that questioned her is automatically like a lunatic from the left or whatever she likes to say. But then she went on to say that she felt that this man was harassing her and that she can't even go to the makeup store without having to look over her shoulder. He was, intimidating her and so on and so forth. Now, it's hard to get in someone's head and to know how they truly feel about situations. And a woman being afraid of a man in a public space is not something I understand on on the actual level, as I am a man. And, I can't obviously fully understand, although I get the concept of it. And so I hate to say, she shouldn't feel that way, or that she's lying because she wasn't actually scared and just is using this as attention and part of her whole "I protect women." Anytime anyone questions her or asks her, why she did this or how could you do this when X and, you did Y, and she always tries to spin it and be like, "Oh, wow, real classy. You're attacking a woman," or, "Oh, a man attacking a woman. How do you think that makes women feel?" Always has to turn it to make it seem like she's only being attacked because she's a woman. And I want to make it clear, that's not why I don't think she's being honest here. I'm not attacking her. If you watch the video, first of all, she's the one who ends up escalating the whole thing. But also, at no point were they more than 7 or 8 feet apart. I'm no less than that. Sorry. This person did not touch her, did not approach her, and more than, again, like no less than 6, 7, 8 feet away. It's not like this person was in her personal space, like a foot or less or whatever. Approached her in the aisle, and the reason we know how this started is because he also had his cell phone rolling and recorded the incident. It started with him just asking when she was going to hold a town hall. He wasn't yelling. He didn't swear. He didn't call her names. Just simply asked her that. And it just devolved from there, and she ended up being the first one to use vulgarities and use insults. So the video is about 2 minutes or so, either one, whether you watch hers or the other gentleman's, who, by the way, his name is Eli Murray Quick, and we'll talk about what he had to say in a moment. So, she mentions, "I host town halls every year," which, yeah, we know you hosted a bunch previously, but people want you to hold it this year. Why is this year different than last? Well, there's a different president, of course, and different issues have come to light. That's why people want town halls now. It's not that you never have held them before. It's because this time is different than last year, obviously. But, that's the line that she's using. And then she starts accusing him of harassing her. And also she mentioned how she did hold the town hall this year, and he said that's not a real town hall. She said it was. And if you remember, it was a phone only town hall that had no advance notice. So she just popped up on social media while she was like eating dinner or something, and rambled for a while and then answered some questions, some of which weren't even questions. They were just statements talking about how people support her. And then she, got angry at someone who dared question anything about her. So, business as usual, not an actual town hall. So in any event, for whatever reason, she, goes from the town hall conversation and just, basically says, by the way, I voted for gay marriage twice. A point that I don't even. It's hard to say it's a point. They weren't discussing gay marriage. The gentleman never brought up anything related to gay marriage, gay rights, nothing. Only had mentioned town halls at this point. So she made an assumption based on, I don't know, whatever her assumptions were, that this gentleman is gay. Which, okay, you can make assumptions on people. Not normally a good thing to do. And he obviously was like, what does that have to do with me? Do you think everything about me has to do with gay marriage? And then she responded, I do, absolutely. So again, just like, it didn't even come up. What was the point of that? So she just assumed he was gay. Maybe he is. I don't know his life, but again, you shouldn't assume, and also had nothing to do with the conversation, but assumes he's gay. So then she goes, well, I voted for gay marriage. So like basically implying like, you should support me because I support you. You should love me. And basically, putting aside the fact whether he is or he isn't, if he is, he asked her, like, is that everything that is me? That is what you see me as? Like, you don't see me as anything other than a gay person. And so therefore, if you voted for gay marriage, I owe you something. Like, yeah, it was just ridiculous, that she did that. And then, he obviously got offended. And it had mentioned that, and she said, I do, absolutely. And then it got worse from there. She ends up calling him crazy and then says, you people on the left are absolutely effing crazy, except she didn't say effing. And then she told him to get out of my face. Again, he's like 7-8 feet away, so he's not really in her face, but okay, maybe she just meant go away. I'm done with this conversation. So she escalates it clearly. Now, look, she was not in an official capacity like a town hall or something like that. I'm sure it's not fun to have someone question you when you're running errands or whatever. But from my perspective, he asked a simple question. He didn't say anything rude until she got really defensive. And he mentioned like, well, that's not a real town hall that you held. That was the most offensive thing he said at that point. And that's when she made the weird, gay marriage comment and said that she thinks that's all that he is gay marriage. And that's all he cares about. And then he got upset by that, but still he didn't swear. Look, I don't care. You want to swear, you want to cuss, whatever, but he didn't do it. And she was the first one to do that, calls him crazy. So she starts with the name calling. She starts with the cussing. She's the one who escalated it, not this gentleman. She did. It's clear from the video. And at no point does she sound like she is scared, that she feels like cornered. And of course, social media is about her saying how, oh, this man approached me and I'm so scared. But then 2 tweets later, she'll be talking about how she said something like, you're all bark, I'm all bite, or something like that. And like trying to talk about how tough she is and she'll never back down. So which is it? Like, were you scared? Or were you not scared and nothing scares you because you're so tough? Whatever. So point is, again, I hate to say what people are thinking or not thinking, but she just doesn't sound scared. There's nothing in that video to me. I'm like, whoa, this gentleman's crossing the line. He's going too far. It just isn't a big deal. And honestly, as bad as she looks, the way she responded, the way she just assumed things about him and got so defensive so quickly, is it that big of a deal? Not really. What took it to the next level is the fact that she recorded it and posted it and tried to make it seem like a constituent of hers is this crazy, unhinged person, when the video shows he didn't do anything crazy or unhinged. And then on top of that, she, criticizes his clothing and then continues to go on tirades against gay people and, of course, trans people. And so that's what really takes it to that next level. Like, yeah, this looks bad. If I heard this story in passing, I'd be like, oh, yeah, it sounds about right. But seeing the video and what she claims it is versus what we see with her own eyes, and then how she just decides to just be so rude for no reason, like, it's just, that's what makes it worse. And I know she's probably heard far worse. Actually, I'm sure, I know she has. I mean, I don't know for sure. Like, I haven't physically seen the evidence, but I'm 99% sure she has seen worse, heard worse. She's been threatened. And so I get all that. That's not cool. That shouldn't be happening to her. Unfortunately, you're a public figure. Those things happen, and they're not okay. But it is something that comes with being a politician. And this was not that. This was a good faith question that someone asked her, and that was it. And she took it to another level, and there was no reason to do that. And then, of course, continues to do it. She's doing hits on Fox News. She's booked a bunch of interviews on it, which I'm sure this is exactly what she wanted. And she doesn't care if she looks good or bad. She just wants more television time and to get out there. And, a lot of main character energy coming from her. And so there's that. So the Post and Courier reaches out to her for comment. Her comment again talks about like this gentleman's appearance and his fashion choices. And the Post and Courier first didn't put that quote in there, which was doing her a favor. But then she got mad and posted on Twitter that, why didn't the Post and Courier put my full response? And she says, quote, also, why didn't the Post and Courier report on the man who was arrested after threatening to put a bullet in the Congresswoman's skull, the same guy who threatened President Trump, end quote. Sorry, that quote was from her campaign, not her. So she's mad that the Post and Courier didn't put her direct quote, which is just, again, just being rude to this gentleman for the most part. And then she says, why didn't you report on this? So what she's talking about is there was an April 11th federal arrest of a man in Butler, Pennsylvania, who is being accused of threatening to kill President Trump, Elon Musk, and other U.S. officials, immigration agents, and others. That her tie into this person is solely because she said it. When this person was arrested, she said that this person had harassed her as well. Why didn't local media report on it? Well, the DOJ release about the arrest never mentioned Mace. So, sorry, I'm sure local media was waiting for confirmation of, what you're saying instead of just taking your word for it, especially when there's a document that you're not mentioned in. If she just said it, they may have said, hey, Nancy Mace is saying this, and we've reached out to try to get more information. But they had a paper from the DOJ about this, and it didn't mention her, which is not to say that she wasn't threatened by this person, but that's why the reporting didn't happen the second she wanted it to be. So that's Mace's side. So as for Eli Murray Quick, the gentleman in the store, basically said, hey, I asked her a simple question in public, and there's video evidence that shows that she responds before what he said spiraling into a public meltdown. He goes on to say she wasn't interrupted, insulted, or blocked from exiting Ulta, which again is the store. So basically saying like her saying that I'm like harassing her or, anything of that nature just doesn't check out from the facts. By the way, it's on video and I also have video. Check it out. This is kind of silly, but he signed that statement that he put out on social media that he is a tax-paying, democracy-loving, well-moisturized constituent who's tired of the circus and even more tired of the clown, end quote. So that happens. It gets around. Of course, there's people like me who are like, you thought you looked good at this, representative? You do not look good in this. You look like you're either exaggerating, lying, overreacting, and you escalated this situation, not your constituent. And, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, there's people on the right and, Nancy Mace fanboys that will just defend her no matter what. And went on to insult him and make other anti-gay, anti-trans comments. Not that he is trans, but, they all group these things together. So that happens. Then Nancy Mace holds an event in Columbia at the University of South Carolina. She was supposed to be giving some sort of talk. And there's another exchange that happens and that she posts on social media. And I just saw before recording, she posted another one, but that one, I mean, it's the same thing. It's someone asking her a question, her telling that person to calm down and don't attack her, even though this person is many, many feet away behind several rows of chairs. And, she's got a microphone and asking why this guy is yelling when he's like 10 rows away from her. Well, he's probably trying to make sure you hear him, Nancy. But anyway, that video is nowhere near, the level of the one I just mentioned or the one that's coming up. And it was a very contentious event, I will say. I've seen many clips, and according to reporting, she only got like 4 minutes into her spiel, and people started shouting things out from the crowd, whether it was about immigration, Doge, etc. So I certainly understand her, being a little bit backed up on this, getting confronted. She's not used to being confronted in a town hall situation. So this, maybe threw her off for a little bit. So in any event, after all these exchanges happen, the event's over. A USC student by the name of Harley Hicks, who uses she, they pronouns, asked Mace to apologize for previously using a derogatory term for transgender people. It's the same derogatory term that Mace has used on the floors of Congress, online, and refuses to acknowledge that it's a derogatory term. Mace asked the person, "Oh, is that derogatory to you?" And Hicks responded, "Well, yeah, of course it effing is." And in this case, congratulations, Nancy, you weren't the first one to swear, because obviously Hicks did not say effing. So after Hicks says, "Yeah, it is offensive," she repeats the word 3 times, just repeats it like a child on the schoolyard, making fun of someone, being like, "You're a dummy." And the person saying, "Don't call me a dummy." And the other person's like, "Dummy, dummy, dummy." Like that's what it was like. It was just so immature and just unnecessary, putting aside the fact that using a derogatory term used to be disqualifying, and this is not going to age well for her. That's the main point. But the fact that she just acts that way about it, just so cavalier and immature about it. I mean, we're talking about a 57-year-old woman who is in Congress, the United States Congress, and this is how she acts. And no, I'm not saying this just because you're a woman, Nancy. I would say the same thing if a man was doing this, and there may be a man somewhere in Congress that is, but not my representative. So that's why we're talking about you. This isn't an attack on women. This is an attack on you. It's just saying, hey, you shouldn't do this. It's just telling you this and saying this is inappropriate. People are allowed to disagree with you without being accused of attacking you and whatever else. And so the clip goes on. Basically, Hicks seems to have had enough, and there's like a potted plant on the stage, and Hicks grabs the plant, and then the video kind of like cuts off from there. I don't know what Hicks was doing. She didn't really give a response as to why exactly she grabbed this potted plant. So hey, look, it was weird that she did it. But Mace put on her social media and then repeated this claim on Fox News later that her security detail thought Hicks was going to throw this potted plant at her. Maybe the video cut off like right after Hicks grabs this plant, and it is weird. So I don't know. But in any event, it wasn't thrown. She didn't make any actions like she was going to throw it. Now, again, the video cut off, which I'm sure there's a reason for it. So we don't see what ends up happening. So when Hicks was asked about this whole accusation that she was going to like throw a plant or get violent, she said, quote, "I'm like a shark, more afraid of her than she is of me," end quote. And then she went on saying that, being a trans person and going to this event was one of the bravest things that she felt she's ever done. She also said that, if she were going to, get violent in any way, it would have been a much different situation than what happened. And, basically implying like, look, if I intended to do anything violent, I would have, about it. And it wouldn't be me picking up a plant and that's the end of it. Again, who knows? It is weird that she did that. But the bottom line here is the beginning of the video, which is her just asking Representative Mace to apologize for using a slur, and Mace saying the slur over and over again right to her face. So she goes on social media, makes these claims about violence, more anti-trans rhetoric, talking about I'm not going to listen to a man in a dress, and more transphobic comments like that, like talking about Hicks's voice, how deep it gets at one point, so just a bunch of transphobic, bigoted comments from her, as on top of using that slur earlier. So there's that. And just as a side note, as I mentioned, other people spoke up, whether during the event or after, to the media. There was a woman by the name of Holly Socks, who is a 58-year-old Gilbert resident, who attended the event, said that she's a lifelong Republican, but started voting for Democrats last year due to the rhetoric of people like Mace and the MAGA, Make America Great Again movement. And we've seen people that have done this. We've seen people who voted Republicans and can't stand this type of behavior. And basically, she, told local media that the MAGA crowd has corrupted and co-opted what they grew up believing. Basically saying this is not the party that I, used to support. And the final question of the event before the incident happened with Hicks was someone who self-identified as a Democrat and basically asked, how can Democrats trust that Mace will have a real conversation with people that she's labeled part of the, quote, lunatic left, end quote? Great question. When you're demonizing people, whether it's by their political beliefs, their sexuality, race, so on and so forth, how can those people believe that you will support them and listen to them? And that's been a thing that we've talked about before, how there might be debates to be had about some of these issues, but the way Mace approaches them is wildly inappropriate and demonizes an entire group. And true to form, that's basically how she answers. She said that she'd have a conversation with anyone. So then that person who asked the question followed up by asking if that extends to the trans community specifically. She says it applies to everyone, and she just couldn't leave it there, and goes on to say, but I'm not going to allow some guy in a skirt to be in my bathroom or in my locker room undressed, end quote. So again, she has a chance to be like, yes, of course, I will listen to anyone, and just kind of leave it at that. But instead, she decides to add the but to make sure she gets her little dig in at the trans community, and do this whole guy in a skirt, bathrooms, locker rooms thing. Now, again, she's entitled to her beliefs, and that's fine if she believes those things. That's whatever. And again, there's people on the left, people on the right, who also have concerns of whether it's bathrooms, locker rooms, trans athletes participating in sports. Specifically women's sports is the biggest one that you hear about the most. So there's not that there aren't people who, if they don't side with her completely, or at least are open to a debate and discussion and want to know more about a topic. And that's how it should be. If, hey, she could go out and say, I don't believe that a trans woman should be able to go into a women's bathroom. Let's have a talk about that. No, she has to do this whole, make these statements about some guy in a skirt, implying that, they're, some kind of predator. They're just trying to get in there to see women and whatever else. And which, again, just demonizes an entire group, even though, she would deny that. And that's been the problem with all these issues. You attack a group and make them seem like the enemy. And this is what they've done. And by they, I mean the right, of course, with immigration. And why, when people are saying, hey, you shouldn't be deporting people without due process, they hit back. These are violent criminals, which we are finding out is not always true. But even if they are violent criminals, they are allowed due process. Even if they are undocumented, they are allowed due process. Past administrations, Republican, Democrats, they have deported people, but not without following the proper procedures. And so that, constantly talking about these people are criminals or these people are predators, you're taking away from a debate that could be happening about these issues, where there might be some kind of compromise, or people might, come around to a different ideology. And instead of doing that, you just attack these marginalized groups. And it's gross and disgusting. And Nancy Mace just doesn't seem to get it, doesn't seem to care if, loves her TV hits, loves being at the center of attention, and will just constantly attack anyone, well, specifically marginalized people, it seems to be, in her quote unquote defense of women and holding the line and all that. And no, you're just being a bully to people who don't have the same reach that you do, don't have the audience that you do, you're a sitting congressperson. Members of the public are allowed to question you. They're allowed to disagree with you. And yes, those that cross the line should absolutely be held accountable or called out on it. But when people aren't crossing the line, you look like the person who cried wolf. And when something actually happens to you, like this horrible thing where she went on the state house floor talking about which she said was a group of predators here in South Carolina, claims that she felt victim to these sexual predators and other women have. That's why you see so many people just outright thinking she's making it all up. And we don't know the end result of this yet, but I have no reason to doubt she's telling the truth. And that's why you see people like, oh no, we've heard this before. You're always the victim, blah, 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 blah. But, that would be really sad if what she said is true. And so many people don't believe her strictly because of this crying wolf thing. I'm always the victim. Whoa, whoa, woe is me. I'm so scared, but I'm so tough. Like, I could talk about this forever, as you know. It's just so frustrating. There's nothing weaker and more pathetic than attacking a marginalized group. But except for attacking an entire group and grouping them all together with whether it's a real crime or a made-up crime and implying that that entire group is like that. It's just bigoted, it's pathetic, it's sad, but we're used to that with Nancy Mace. All right, last update, a court case that a lot of people were paying attention to. The family of 3 Carleton County women that were killed in a crash say that they are hurt by the judge's sentence for the former Charleston County deputy that was just convicted in their deaths. Former Deputy Emily Pelletier was convicted on 3 counts of reckless homicide in a May 8, 2022 crash that killed 53-year-old Stephanie Dantzler and her 2 daughters, 28-year-old Shanice Dantzler Williams and 22-year-old Miranda Dantzler Williams. A judge sentenced the former deputy to a total of 5 years, including 3 years in prison, followed by 2 years of probation for each count. But the sentences will run concurrently, meaning that they run at the same time, of course. So Pelletier will effectively serve a total of 3 years behind bars, which equates to, 1 year per death, that she caused. Eric Dantzler, who is the brother of Stephanie Dantzler and uncle to those 2 daughters that I mentioned, said that, quote, "There's no justice in this here. They even hurt us even more with what went on," end quote. So the 3 women died when Pelletier's sheriff's officer cruiser slammed into their car at around 11 p.m. on May 8th, again, back in 2022. Dantzler and her daughters were returning from a dinner that they had on Mother's Day. Pelletier was speeding and ran a stop sign at U.S. Highway 17 at New Road and ended up crashing and killing these 3 women. Pelletier did take the stand and said that she was responding urgently to a call based on the fact that there was a driver whose vehicle had broken down and they had called multiple times for assistance and it hadn't helped yet. She also mentioned she was using some kind of like GPS type device that she felt that she wasn't where she actually was on Highway 17. She said she didn't see any car lights, didn't see any signs. She thought she was on some other road. But then also she did take responsibility and apologize to the family of the 3 victims, saying she would do anything to trade places with them. Ultimately, the family, as I mentioned, does not believe justice was served, as they, say, hey, basically she's getting 1 year in jail for each life that she took. And, they didn't feel that was good enough. And that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you had an amazing start to your week, and I hope you have a great week ahead. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear each and every show. I'll be back with you on Friday. Until then, good night and good luck.